Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the first episode of Sonia Reviews. What I'm going to be doing here is I'm going to pick a movie. I'm going to analyze it. I'm going to give a review of it. Basically, a watered-down version of the Nostalgia Critic. And our first movie. Theo, roll the intro.
Godzilla -1.
Isn't that great? I'm not paying him for it. Before we analyze it and review it, a little history. So, back in 1954, the Japanese movie company Toho made a film called Godzilla, King of the Monsters, or Gojira, known in Japan, about a dinosaur mutated and awoken by the nuclear bombs from Hiroshima and Nagasaki. It spanned all the way up until 2004, until it is now returned in 2016 with Shin Godzilla, and most recently with this movie, Godzilla -1. This movie takes place post-World War II Japan, so directly after the Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombings. It follows the main character by the name of Kochi, who deals with the stress of the war, Godzilla himself, becoming a family man, losing said family, and the guilt of what he did during the war, which was something very frowned upon in Japanese culture back then. To truly grasp this movie, it would take a while. So, bear with me as I run through this plot real quick. Our movie begins on an island, otherwise known as Otto Island. Our main character, Koji, is flying in on what seems to be a broken plane. However, what he is doing is that he is abandoning his post. See, in the war, he was a kamikaze pilot. Don't know what a kamikaze pilot is. They were pilots that were trained to sacrifice themselves during the war in honor of their country. He abandoned his post, which was seen as disrespectful at that time. On this island, he meets a group of characters who will later be dead, but the main one is Sasaku. On this island, as night falls, they hear something arriving in the forest. They see deep-sea fish being brought to shore, and as the night comes, you guessed it, our good old giant dinosaur friend appears, killing all but two on the island, our main characters, Sosaku and Koji. After this, Koji arrives back to Japan, where he is seen as a traitor. After this, Koji arrives back to Japan, and where he is due to the nuclear blasts, he has no family. There's a neighbor woman that survived, but he has no family. From then on, he tries to live his life best he can, tries to rebuild, and eventually meets up with a woman named Noriko. They meet because she is a thief, and she gave him a child. However, as the movie goes on, they become close, and eventually basically become husband and wife without actually being married. Kochi ends up getting a job as a bomb explorer. What he does is he meets these new group of characters led by Dr. Nato, and they are jobbed to destroy mines that were in the water. And life seems to be going good. Until something sinister arrives. There are reports of Japanese warships being destroyed, and the government doesn't know what is doing it. So, Kochi, Dr. Noto, and our other friends venture out there as bait. They are jobbed with luring out this suspicious creature. as it goes on and they finally figure out what's causing these horrific murders. It is none other than Godzilla. Anyway, they try to kill him. They eventually put one of the mines into Godzilla's mouth and blow it up by shooting it. But that doesn't seem to work, as our good old friend has regenerative powers, because apparently he's fucking him, I guess. And just as Godzilla is about to fucking end their lives, a ship shows up, stating that they can kill Godzilla. It doesn't work. They wound him, but eventually Godzilla rips completely through the ship, blowing it up with his atomic heat ray, and gives the coolest shot in the fucking movie. Koji arrives in Japan, back to Tokyo, trying to state the horrors that he has just seen, but no one really believes him. While this is going on, he's dealing with his own self-guilt as he feels responsible for all the deaths on Otto Island many years ago, because he did not fire at Godzilla, resulting the whole crew dying. He deals with this guilt by dreaming about them and dreaming of them just being slaughtered and murdered by Godzilla. The way this film deals with depression, PTSD, is one of the best things about this movie is that this movie is not just a monster movie. It is a character-driven movie. Every single character in this movie delivers perfectly for what they're representing. They all represent guilt from the war. And Koji resembles this perfectly because of all the guilt that he suffered during the war. And eventually, Godzilla shows up again. This time, he begins to just decimate the city, and Noriko is in the city. She tries very hard to get away, and she eventually does, but with the help of Koji, but just as they think they're safe, Godzilla charges up and destroys the entire city with just one blast. And it's not the heat ray that destroys the city, it's the aftershock of it. That is how powerful this is. Shown here, in my opinion, the most chilling scene in any movie of 2023. I tell you, I got chills during this scene in the theater. I'm not joking. I saw it with Theo in IMAX, and it was one of the most horrifying things I've ever seen in my life. And shows truly that nobody can really get over what happened all those years ago. And it shows perfectly what true fear and guilt look like in a monster. It's the greatest scene in any Godzilla movie ever. And sadly, we lose Noriko. This guy just can't win. Eventually, the government and Dr. Nato come up with a plan to defeat the monster. They plan to entrap him, sink him to the bottom of the ocean, and then bring him back up to freeze him. However, Kochi, dealing with more and more guilt, seeing how he's now lost friends, family, and the closest thing he had to a partner since he got back, he decides, with the help of Sasuke, that he's going to kamikaze into Godzilla. As they freeze him, he's going to fly into Godzilla's mouth with a bomb and sacrifice himself to save Japan. Just as the plan is about to fail, Godzilla freezes just enough to where Koji can fly in, and just as he's about to sacrifice himself, he ejects from his plane, and Godzilla is defeated. However, we find two more things in this ending. One, Noriko survived the blast and lived to fight another day, ending the movie on one of the most heartbreaking final lines of all time. She looks at Koji as he holds their daughter and says, "Is your war over yet?" And the final shot shows in the ocean the heart of Godzilla slowly regenerating, waiting for one next attack. And then you have it. So, what are my initial thoughts on it? This is the best movie of the year. It is acted perfectly, it is written perfectly, it is shot perfectly, and it is so heartbreaking and terrifying. It's everything Godzilla has ever been to Japan ever since the first one in 1954 came out. It is perfect. Perfect, perfect, perfect. I highly recommend people watching this movie before any of the silly goofy ones from the 60s and 70s. Because they need to know what Godzilla first means to Japan, and then watch some of the later things that made him a true icon in Japan, rather than just what he meant. I rate this movie a 10 out of 10. It's the best movie of the year, and I really don't know what's going to beat it for films later. I think it's, as of right now, the best movie I've seen in the last couple years, objectively speaking. This is why you wait until December to do movie rankings, folks, because you may see a summer film, for example, you think is world-beating, never gonna be beaten. And then a movie like this comes out that is a true punch in the gut to cinema fans and Godzilla fans of just a movie. It's a true fucking movie. Sadly, I didn't wait until December to do rankings because I thought a certain film wasn't going to be beat. Godzilla had beaten it, and I'm segueing into my next review, which is going to be the destroyer of worlds himself, Oppenheimer. Stay tuned, folks. And remember, go, go, Godzilla!